Antelope Freeway 1 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/2 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/4 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/8 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/16 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/32 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/64 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/128 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/256 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/512 mile. We've just passed Antelope Freeway.
This is Dale Matthews. I run a free, non-commercial website called badcounty.com, where we keep track of what's happening with the Josephine County Board of Commissioners. Because I attend all the meetings, people often ask me to provide a little background on some of the more complex issues. This week we'll talk about the pending recall of Cherryl Walker. Cherryl Walker swore to uphold the U.S. Constitution and the laws of the state of Oregon in the best tradition of the Josephine County Charter when she took office as a county commissioner on January 7, 2013. Of November's 34,411 voters, she won her position by a total of 62 votes. Right away, she started saying and doing some very odd things. Because I keep a completely independent and verifiable record on videotape of everything the commissioners do in public meetings, I rose to the top of her list. Can't we stop this guy? No, he can videotape all public meetings. It's state law. No, but don't you see, it's a waste of time because the government already tapes meetings. We'll provide meetings. He's protected by state law. But what I meant to say is it's distracting. It's not in keeping with decorum. But we define decorum, and taping is disruptive. She really said this. We will provide officially sanctioned videos. It's worth noting here that under Cherryl Walker's new rules, you can no longer purchase any county video records, not at any price. They're no longer available to the public. So much for providing copies made by the county. And they throw away old records. They throw them away. Our citizen records, my citizen records, are the only copy of older commissioners' meetings in existence. That's because they erase history. Can you see now what my recordings mean? Okay. So Simon Hare brought the two new commissioners his ideas for solid waste ordinances. Cherryl Walker is very excited by this because she doesn't like her neighbor, which she says in public, because he has a messy yard. So she comes up with the idea that there are 300 cases clogging up the courts. There's 300 of them. We need to do something about this. Well, this has since been proven completely false. It turned out that there was really about 6, not 300. She deemed that it was a threat to public safety, these things, since proven false, because some of them had absolutely nothing. Well, out of 300 supposed cases, even out of the 6 that were left over, almost none of them had anything to do with public safety. Well, she said in a public meeting, these are simply opposed by people who favor rats. What? Yes, that's what she said. And it's supported by just about everybody. Really? These ordinances lost by an 80% vote. What happened to all those everybodies out there? Oh, I've been flooded by people. Please, no voters pamphlet on this. Who's begging for no voters pamphlet? This is what she said. These are very odd things, don't you think? So, well, said Simon here, even though he brought it out in the first place, he said, well, what would happen if the voters were to offer to pay for a voter's pamphlet out of their own pockets? It could cost $10,000. It didn't. Oh, what if they brought up $10,000? No, Not going to happen. Absolutely not. Not going to allow it. We don't need that. I've got people asking me, please, please, no voters pamphlet. There's not going to be any debate. Okay, if you insist on debate, we're not going to have equal time for a debate. I get twice as much time as everybody else. Really? It just went on and on and on like this. It was kind of crazy. So now there's a recall petition out. It was filed June 13. I'm going to tell you what the petition says. Then you can sort of decide for yourself whether any of this makes sense, and maybe I'll make a couple of notes as we're going, but I'll try to just read what it says on the petition. Here's what it says. The grounds for recalling Josephine County Commissioner Cherryl Walker are that we, the people, have lost confidence in her ability to effectively conduct the people's business and govern as our elected representative. While serving as commissioner, she has insisted on adopting 4 nuisance ordinances that were rejected by 80% in a referendum, demonstrating that she's out of touch with the majority of her constituents. Now, all along, she claimed that she was totally in touch with the constituents, and the people who were showing up at meetings were just a distraction. Why, they don't know what they're talking about. They're in favor of rats. All kinds of people are saying, please, please, do exactly what you're doing. Well, all those people that were supposedly approaching her and begging her to do this, what happened to them? It's mathematically proven that this was false. Second thing they put in is, willfully misrepresented the nature and content of those ordinances while campaigning for them. You know, one of the things that was in an ordinance is that when the law enforcement people go out and they enforce this, that the money from their fines will go back to their department. Well, I don't think that's a very good idea. I mean, it would sort of encourage just a little bit that department to find more errors, right? She opposed publishing a voters pamphlet for the referendum election. She insisted that there be no voters pamphlet, and it wasn't until Sandy Casanelli walked up with cash that it embarrassed the commissioners that they didn't know what to say. They never thought we'd do that. She misused law enforcement resources by calling the police twice during weekly business sessions to enforce non-existent rules. In one example, Sandy Casanelli brought, I always bring a camera to these meetings, and I'm protected by law. Sandy Casanelli brought a little camera. The camera's about 2 inches long. I mean, it was really little. And she put it on the chair next to her on a tiny little tripod that was shorter than 2 inches. And Cherryl Walker stopped the meeting, and she says, there's a rule against that. Really? Yeah, you must, the rules say you must keep it in your lap. Well, I've read through all the rules. There's no rule that says you have to keep it in your lap, so you're not supposed to speak up from the audience unless you've been recognized. And I said, well, I'd like to see that rule. Keith Eck jumped to her defense. Well, the rule's over at the county commissioner's office. I said, oh, I'd like to see that one right away. I put in for the rule. It doesn't exist. And they never answered me. It's against state law not to answer when you put in a request for information. Well, that's not quite as important as the idea that they're just making these things up as they go along. It just simply wasn't true. So when Sandy Casanelli sat there completely silent, she wasn't going to say a single word. Cherryl Walker says, well, I demand that you answer me. Well, see, there's a rule against answering. See, when I spoke up, that was against the rules. You're not supposed to question government. And Sandy Casanelli was not standing at the podium. And Cherryl Walker asked her a question, and she just sat there. Well, now suddenly that's an offense where you have to call in the police? The police came in, they talked to Sandy Casanelli, and basically, well, this is ridiculous, and they left. Sandy didn't have to do anything. It wasn't against any kind of rule. Cherryl Walker insisted, and she was backed up by Keith Eck. This is why I think he should be recalled too, but, well. So, next, she misused law enforcement resources by calling the police twice. So I just said that, so I just read it twice. She demonstrated her inability to effectively chair weekly business sessions, you think? By abruptly adjourning or recessing them before conducting county business. Yes, she's done that a couple of times, where she just didn't like the way the meeting was going and just said, this meeting's over. Really? She didn't even talk to her other commissioners. She just said, the meeting's over, and stormed out. She attempted to eliminate public comment from the weekly business sessions and was overruled by the other commissioners. Right, when she didn't get her way at one of the meetings, she decided that they were going to move or eliminate all public comments because she wasn't getting her way. Well, the last thing I need is a mother telling me, you can't do this. Another time, this was funny. Sandy Castanelli walked in and she didn't want to put the camera on her lap because there's no rule about that. So what she did was, because there's a new rule about using tripods, because tripods can be so dangerous, she Cherryl Walker quoted the fire marshal. And I talked to the fire marshal afterwards, and he says, I never said anything like that. This camera is not dangerous. What is she talking about? So Sandy Castanelli brought this tiny little C-clamp. Not a tripod, a C-clamp. You know what that is. And she attached it to the back of the chair next to her. And Cherryl Walker comes in and says something like, we're not attaching cameras to chairs today. Really? What is this, kindergarten? We're adults. We're not attaching cameras to chairs today? What? It's a little bit wacky. It doesn't make any sense. She engaged in unprofessional and harassing conduct towards citizens who oppose or challenge her. Yes, absolutely. I got up at a meeting a couple of days ago, and it was a public hearing. The rules for public hearings are set down by state law. If people want to get up, as long as they stick to the subject of the public hearing, it's not their time to talk about black helicopters. They're supposed to talk about, in this case, it was the supplemental budget for the county. I got up and I said, well, I'm here to talk about the supplemental budget for the county, and I have a videotape, and I held up a DVD. She said, stop. I know what you're going to say. Sit down. Really? At a public hearing? You cannot question, I'm the one that makes... Hey, wait a minute. This is a public hearing. You don't know what I do know what you're going to say, and you must sit down right now. Keith Heck was backing her up. I would submit that she's the disruptive influence in these meetings, and there's no talking her out of it. Many people who are in the Rotary Club, she's president of Rotary Club also. Nothing wrong with Rotary Club except maybe our local one. And they've tried to talk her out of it, but she's absolutely adamant. No, this is going to be run my way. Well, she refused to prioritize public safety over public works, say the people that put in this recall petition, in the county budget, while demonstrating that she's out of touch with the priorities of the people. I think that's somewhat fair, yes. Demonstrated ignorance of and or disdain for our county charter. Yes, again and again and again. Failed to carry out any of her campaign promises posted on her website. Gosh, honestly, I don't go to her website, but I'm going to take their word for it. In a recall petition, you don't have to be completely factual. I think I've indicated to you that most of these are right on the money. And I offered to help. I said, no, look, anytime that you want to, you can go to badcounty.com. There's 517 plus videos, and a lot of them are about Cherryl Walker, and some of the things that she said that just, when you criticize government, that's slander. What? No, that's not slander. I mean, you can go back to 1801 with Alexander Hamilton. He's on the $10 bill, and we separated ourselves from Old England. He did. Why do I know this? Because he was defending a journalist at the time who had said things about the federal government that they didn't like, even back then, 1801. And he went to court and he said, look, we're not going to do it the British way anymore. We're Americans. And if it's true, that's the defense. And that is the defense. So when I get up and speak, I'm not going to say something controversial. I'm not going to say anything at all unless I've got it already on videotape. That's why I was holding up that videotape, that DVD. So these are the reasons behind the recall of Cherryl Walker. If there was some other way of doing it, that'd be so much better. At another time, I'll tell you about the people who are actually running the Not exactly my favorite people. I wanted to make it possible for you to have the choice of who you wanted to recall. 0, 1, 2, 3. You would decide. You're the voters. You should be making these decisions. Well, there's a small group of people. So no, it's got to be nobody but Cherryl Walker. Well, I talked to him and I said, listen, if I want someone telling me what my options are and restricting them, I'll go to a county commissioners meeting.
We've just passed Antelope Freeway.